Right, come here a minute. Keir Starmer was Director of Public Prosecutions. We've talked a lot about the Daily Mail today, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more. Keir Starmer was Director of Public Prosecutions, right? One of the most senior lawyers in the country. His job was to pick over the fine detail and determine where criminality lay and didn't lie, what cases were pursuable and what cases were not. I was pretty confident that there was no earthly way, because he's not a cynical politician, there was no earthly way that he was going to make that pledge to resign in the event of being fined unless he had brought every single one of his loyally why was it every single one? Every single element of his loyally expertise to bear upon the question. He would have gone through it with a fine-tooth comb. He would have done precisely the opposite of what Boris Johnson would have done in similar circumstances, and he would have dug into the detail and read through the rubric and established the law in a forensic and professorial way. And then he would have concluded that he had absolutely nothing to lose or indeed even risk by saying, look, if I'm found to be guilty of that which Boris Johnson is guilty of, then I will actually resign. And he was right. Here's the full statement. Following the emergence of significant new information, an investigation was launched by Durham Constabulary into a gathering at the Miners' Hall in Red Hills, Durham on the 30th of April 2021. That investigation has now concluded. A substantial amount of documentary and witness evidence was obtained, which identified the 17 participants and their activities during that gathering. Following the application of the evidential full code test, it has been concluded that there is no case to answer for a contravention of the regulations due to the application of an exception, namely reasonably necessary work. Accordingly, Durham Constabulary will not be issuing any fixed penalty notices in respect of the gathering, and no further action will be taken. The investigation has been thorough, detailed and proportionate. The final evidence supplied by participants from the local constituency was returned to Durham Police on the 5th of July and analysed by investigators against all the evidence before the investigation was concluded on the 8th of July 2022. In line with the established national policing guidelines, we will not name or otherwise identify any of those present at the gathering, all of whom have been informed of the investigation outcome by their legal representatives. So if you are just joining us, Keir Starmer will not be fined for breaching lockdown rules because Keir Starmer did not breach lockdown rules. Meanwhile, the running total of people who did breach lockdown rules or fixed penalty notices issued to people working in Downing Street while they wrote the actual laws is it around the 120 mark? Has anyone got the number in front of them? How many fixed notices at Downing Street? It is. No one's shouting in my ear now, are you? Where's all the information I'm looking for now? How many fixed penalties have gone to Downing Street? And I'll take a moment to talk again about the Daily Mail, because this was one of the most disgusting episodes in British journalism that you will ever witness. They tried to persuade you 126, there we go, 126 fixed penalty notices in Downing Street alone. They tried to persuade you that you didn't care about the fact that they were having parties. And this was entirely, I know I obsess a bit about the Mail, but this is all on their door. Absolutely all of it is down to them. They tried to persuade you that you didn't care about the fact that they were having lots of parties in Downing Street while you were not able to attend funerals or visit family or even pick up your new grandchild. They tried to tell you that. And because they've succeeded in the past at telling you, for example, that being in the European Union isn't a very good idea, or that Boris Johnson would make a brilliant prime minister, they presumed you'd believe them. They backed themselves to sell you that lie, just as they have sold you lie after lie after lie in recent years. But you didn't buy it. You were not having it. You decided, actually, you know what? It's outrageous. It's disgusting. It's not fluff, Jacob Rees-Mogg, to be concerned about this. He wasn't ambushed by cake, you ridiculous people. It was gross that you were throwing parties like they were going out of fashion while the rest of us couldn't even visit our mums. It was absolutely disgusting. And the Daily Mail tried to persuade you that it wasn't. They even tried to tell you at one point that you'd moved on from this and that you didn't really care anymore. And then they wheel out the ludicrous mewling pencil himself to describe it as fluff and claim that you don't care. And then all the client journalists and the forelock-tugging, cap-doffing cowards to talk about how the public has moved on and he was ambushed by cake and it didn't really matter. But guess what? It didn't work. So here's what they did, and this is really important. If you give a fig about the relationship between British journalism, British politics and the British people, if you give even a slither, a slice of fig, they just decided to gaslight you. And not just you, they decided to gaslight the police as well. So they just kept putting it on the front page. So it begins usually, this sort of thing, with a tweet or an article by that ludicrous Guy Fawkes themed website, which is, well, essentially is to journalism what icebergs are to the Titanic. And so they would have done something with it. It had been published in The Sun about 9 months ago. But they're looking around. They say, what the hell can we do? This party business looks like it might get Johnson. And then I'll never get my seat in the House of Lords or my knighthood. What can we do? What are we going to do? It hasn't worked, boss. We've tried to tell people that they don't care about the fact that Boris Johnson was throwing parties like they were going out of fashion when they couldn't even attend funerals of their own family members. They're not buying it, boss. What are we going to do? Right, well, what are we going to do? Okay, so they're not doing that. We've tried the fluff test. Rees-Moggs failed again. Okay, we're going to have to go for they're all as bad as each other. But that involves admitting that Boris Johnson is awful. Yeah, but it doesn't matter, does it, if we can also somehow portray Keir Starmer as being equally awful? So, well, we can't, really. He's not. Yeah, but if you tell them often enough, if you hit them over the head with it, it's going to pop up on all the paper reviews on the telly. It's going to be talked about on the radio shows. Even O'Brien will have to talk about it if we stick it on the front page for 4 or 5 days straight. We're going to make it matter even though it doesn't. And who knows? Maybe the police will have a fit of the vapours or a rush of blood to the head and actually find him guilty. We know it doesn't matter. We know that Keir Starmer is not even accused with this pathetic little picture that was taken illegally from someone trespassing on land they weren't supposed to be on. We know it's a non-story. If it was a story, it would have floated when it was first published last year. But our contempt for the British public, as editors of the Daily Mail, our contempt for the British public is so complete and so immense that we're going to gaslight them with this as well. And it won't work if we only put it on one front page. It won't work if we only put it on 2 front pages. It won't even work if we stick it on 5 front pages, because they're not that stupid, they're not that gullible, they're not that credulous. So here's what we're going to do, lads. We're going to stick it on the front page of the best-selling newspaper in the country for 2 straight weeks. And we're going to carry on doing it until they buckle, until reality is bent to our own diabolical designs, which involve, at this point in British history, one thing and one thing only: protecting the most corrupt Prime Minister we have ever had or will ever have. So they did it. They stuck it there for 2 straight weeks. And finally, Durham police said, we're investigating, and people like Boris Johnson could stand up in the House of Commons and say, incredible. And all the little client journalists running around adding to the idea that they're all as bad as each other, or that Starmer has a case. What about Keir Starmer Currygate? Beer face curry Keir something. It's the contempt in which they hold you that gets me out of bed every day. It's the contempt in which they hold you that gets me angry, gets me upset, gets my patriotic heart skipping a beat, because they hate you. They think you're so stupid that you won't see through a desperate, despicable, pathetic attempt to portray Keir Starmer as being even in the same universe of corruption and law-breaking as Boris Johnson. And that's backfired as well. What a day for the Daily Mail. What a day for Paul Dacre and Ted Verity and David Dillon, eh? And Jonathan Harmsworth, who bankrolls the whole shebang. What a day. You've been punched in court by Prince Harry. Your man has been chased out of Downing Street with his despicable overused tail between his ridiculous pink legs. And now your attempt to get Keir Starmer on the same sort of hook that Johnson has been swinging on for months has failed completely and miserably. But people like me don't get champagne corks out, because normal service will be resumed tomorrow morning or on Monday morning. And, of course, the cabal will just kick back again and the corruption will continue, and they'll be back to persuading you to vote against your own interests, to put disgusting adulterers who wouldn't know the truth if it slapped them round the face with a wet fish smack in the middle of Downing Street. And why? They can't even tell you. Why do you want Boris Johnson to be Prime Minister? Something, foreigners, Brexit, something. They can't even tell you. They don't even know. They don't think that far down the road. Everything is a football game. Everything is a battle, is a fight, is a meaningless gladiatorial combat. And my God, to see that one fail so miserably has brought me a modicum of joy in this otherwise dismal week. Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner have always been clear that no rules were broken in Durham. The police have completed their investigation and have agreed, saying that there is no case to answer. Keir Starmer will be making a statement this afternoon and will take questions from the media. What a day. Prince Harry defamed in court today to find out the Mail on Sunday defamed him. Why? Clicks and giggles. Boris Johnson, finally hoist by the petard of his own epic corruption. 50 things one newspaper's put together. We could probably double it if it wasn't for the fact that Sheila Fogarty is expecting to start work in 15 minutes, quite correctly. We could easily double it. We could double it with our eyes shut. And now that pathetic attempt, that single most obnoxious episode in the recent history of the British press, and by God, there's a lot of competition, that attempt to corral the Durham Constabulary, to persuade the British public, to corrupt the public space by propagating the lie that Keir Starmer had done anything remotely comparable to what Boris Johnson and 125 other people in Downing Street had done when they partied as we mourned or observed lockdown or endured enforced separation from our loved ones. Tony Benn. You never win. You never, ever win. You just got to keep pushing. Because if you don't push back against these people and these papers and these politicians, this week you just got a little glimpse of what would happen.